Hi everyone, my name's Greg Freeman. I'm the CEO of Data Literacy Academy, and we are joined on this video series in partnership with Andy Crossley from Oakland. And what we wanted to do was share a video series that explains how we think about the world, and hopefully it helps a lot of people.
Right, we're into planning now, Greg. Not one of my fortes, to get the proper project managers to do that, but planning is a really interesting one. You often, we've found that you start to go in the conversation from a big enterprise type conversation down into like individual projects or teams or business units. So you're narrowing the scope quite a lot. But I find it fascinating that in my history of my career, to talk about technology projects or app development, this is a point at which you're starting to go, well, once we've built the thing, what's the training rollout? What's the education plan? How do we get people to adopt it? And I'm always amazed by the amount of data projects or data transformation projects that don't include that. And I can't be alone in sort of thinking that that's a gap. So I don't know whether that's something you've come across.
Yeah, I think what's really amazing to me, coming from a background where, again, doing technology implementations at scale, everyone's kind of aware, I would say, fundamentally, that a strategy in this space is technology, process, people. At its core, there's obviously other things that get added on and bolted on, but the bit that I see delivered so often is the technology and the process with no people alignment. It's like it's an afterthought. And what that means is that you end up building really good technology. And this is why Data Literacy Academy exists, if I'm being honest. Like, we used to deliver immense technology programs that just weren't adopted in former companies. And what I decided to do was fix that problem, because you've got to warm the business up. They've got to be ready for it. If they don't see the value in it, you roll out a data product, and we've got an example from a large pharmaceutical company, which I refer to fairly often in my conversations through Data Literacy Academy, where they'd built a phenomenal data product. It was based on 17 years of historical data. It told the sales org exactly who to speak to, when to speak to them, what product they were probably going to buy, and what price they'd pay, based on years and years of evidence from internal processes. It got binned within 8 weeks within the program because the planning hadn't been done to warm those people up, and the sales team weren't ready for it. They felt like it was going to take their jobs, I think was the main feedback that was given. And actually, if there was a planning process done to align the training and the people and the culture, the community of work around that in advance of that, that data product would have delivered ROI. Instead, it's another £5 million project that's in the bin, and those things really kill data teams. So that alignment of the three is massive.
Yeah, I find talked in the previous video around defining your sort of lighthouses versus your foundational projects. And that's where those lighthouse projects are really potentially really valuable, I find. Being able to get something out into the business quite quickly and test some of that and test and learn. You're right though, you want to build a dashboard and somebody comes with, well, we need these measures. But unless they've said, well, who's the user of that dashboard or thing, that data product, and what decision are they ultimately going to make from it, the dashboard's not worth anything. So we're really careful to balance the foundational and the lighthouse, but make sure the lighthouses are developed with the business rather than with just the tech team. You know, who's the end user and how are they going to use it should be one of your first questions. Now, the rest of the foundational stuff needs to follow, because if you've not got the right platform, the right data quality, clearly that will fall over for a different reason. But yeah, I think that the plan phase is really quite critical. It's probably where you start to invest much more time than the previous two to get it right and define your success criteria as well.
Yeah, I really love that idea of lighthouses, because one of the things that we see is that there's not enough lighthouses delivered whilst the foundational stuff's going on. So you sell this dream of data as the problem that's going to solve the world, data is the new oil, all those types of things. And actually, you could do simple lighthouse stuff, like if someone's got a really rubbish Excel process, go fix it with them. Yeah. That's going to buy you so much time and favor while you're doing the foundational stuff. And I think the other thing that we really try and emphasize, and I know this is really a common message that the kind of the strategic players in the space are delivering as well, you have to meaningfully engage the business during this planning phase. And what I mean by that is not just, here's a report, read it, hope they sign it off because they've blindly signed off data budget again. Take the time to sit down with them, have one-on-ones, really understand how this aligns to their key initiatives, their key objectives, because that's all the messaging you're going to need down the line. And we were working with a large e-com retailer recently where, to be honest, they'd done a really good job with their own program, being truthful, and we never want to compete with internal programs. We feel like you have to spend an awful lot of money on a good internal data literacy program, like in the basic millions, just to get it off the ground. But what they hadn't done was really like take the time with the senior leadership. So I didn't try and sell them anything. I just said, look, go back to the start almost. Don't undo everything you've already done because it's ready to deliver, but just take some time, sit down, have some one-to-ones with all the key stakeholders, not just a briefing session, which is often the data way. We'll just brief them, they'll get it. They don't get it. So deal with their initiatives, deal with their objectives, and really align it to those things, and you'll get far better support for the plan downstream. And that's what you can always loop back to when we get into those later phases, like execution. Well, we did talk about this in the planning phase, you were on board with it then, we signed it off, all those types of things. So yeah, I think it's a really important element to maintain that business engagement.
Your point on the business engagement, I agree. In planning, it's probably the first time you start to engage much broader communities and sets of people. One of the great examples we've seen with one of our financial services clients is they went out to engage the client, the team, from that planning perspective, but their main goal wasn't an outcome as such, or a deliverable. Their desire was to make sure that the business had a great experience working with the data team. So even if the output was a bit rubbish or didn't quite work, that planning phase became how they start to talk to the business, how they start to show that the data team care. And that's what set them up for success. It's almost like the actual outputs and products came secondary, but they now trust the data team and they see them there to help rather than hinder or get in the way, which is, I know historically has been sort of view of tech teams, for example, is like we just get in the way and make it harder. So that was their key success criteria. Can we make it a wonderful experience?
It's really funny, isn't it? Because like a lot of people that I speak to in the data space, data professionals, will talk about their internal customers, the business customers. But I think what goes forgotten is that actually, as a result, we are delivering a customer service. And this is a customer service experience, which starts by the customer understanding what the plan is, what their expectations should be, and ultimately it being delivered and something that you can always loop back to. And I think one of the things that we spend a lot of time in, because we do, as a lot of people know, we do teach data to business people, but we also teach business to data people, and that's one of our kind of specialist areas. And we will say regularly, unfortunately, love it or hate it, this is a sales game at times. It's a sales and customer service game. And if you want to buy yourself the favor, buy yourself the trust, buy yourself the budget and the success downstream, you've got to really give a great level of service. And I love the fact that you've referred to that, because I think it's such an important element of what we do.
So true. Some of our, some of our best data people are those who are slightly less techie, but more business orientated, because they can go and have that conversation with the client or client teams. I'm sure you've seen it before, but for a long time, people talked about data people as being the translator between tech and business. And I think people have forgotten that a bit. They do play that role in bringing tech and business closer together and almost acting as the glue, because they're not always just technical and they're not always just business. And people forget that. You're right. It's a great analogy of this is a customer service operation we're trying to build as a data team, really.